and started talking to people and doing interviews and, you know, trying to think about what I wanted to talk to people about and so on. And I actually was pleasantly surprised by how easy it is to actually launch a podcast. Like,
Hi, Mary Lou. Welcome to the Meetup spot.
thanks, Nigel. It's good to be here.
And thank you for inviting me to your podcast, by the way, the Immigrant Perspective. Before we start, do you want to tell my listeners about that?
Sure, I would love to. Thank you. You and I just did. This is our second recording. We just recorded a little while ago for my podcast, which is called The Immigrant Perspective. I am an immigrant, came here as a kid from Ireland here to the United States. And you and I found each other on Reddit a few weeks ago. And so you volunteered to be a guest to share your immigrant story, which I greatly appreciate. My website is reallyfrompod.com, and I'm on Facebook and Instagram as Immigrant Perspective Pod.
Oh,
So if
nice.
anybody wants to jump on, they're welcome to. If you go to reallyfrompod.com, it's got all the episodes and it has a contact page. And I'd love to chit chat with your listeners.
Mm, I see. I see. All right. Here. Before we go, before we start, tell me about Tennessee.
Tennessee, it is incredibly hot here right now. Like we are in the heat dome, so our heat index today is certainly over 100 degrees. I'm in Southeast Tennessee in Chattanooga, which is a beautiful spot with a couple mountains nearby. We're close to the Smoky Mountains. I mean, I can't
Mm,
see them from here, but they're in the not too distant part of East Tennessee. We are on the Tennessee River. Um, Super hot here in the summer. It's a nice place to live. Tennessee gets a bad rap in a lot of ways, like for education and health and some other things, but Chattanooga is a great little spot. I am here with my family and we have a great little community. I really like it.
mm. Also, yeah. Also, the sun's out here. Yeah, right here in Edmonton.
Yeah. How hot is it up there? I forgot to ask you that.
Probably 20 in the 20 degrees Celsius outside.
Okay. Yeah, we're about like I said, like 100 degrees easily with the heat index today. I don't somewhere in the 30s Celsius. It's just too hot. It's literally too hot to be outside.
I see. All right, here we go. Let's get started. So Mary, tell me about yourself and your growing up story.
Sure. And first of all, like I just want to I go by Mary Lou. I'm sorry I didn't say that earlier. It's Mary is my first name, Lou is my middle name, and Louise is my middle name, and we were talking earlier about your name. For
Hmm.
some reason, my parents decided to give me the name Mary Lou instead of Mary, which has been a challenge all my life. But anyway, grew up in Ireland, really small town on the west coast of Ireland, tight-knit community, a beach town on the Atlantic Ocean. Ireland is really, really far north. I actually should have looked to see where it is relative to Edmonton, and they have the same long days in the summer, like the sun, I mean, not the sun necessarily, but it's daylight till 11:30 at night. And even at midnight, you can still see little patches of blue in the sky. Great little vacation town. Like uh, it's the town I come from has always been a vacation town for people in the. There's this big city like about an hour away, and people always came for the summer and stuff. Tough place to leave as a 10-year-old. Just a fun little community. My dad was the town doctor, and 40 years later, it's been 40 years since we moved. He still goes back. He lives here in Chattanooga too, he and my mom. And he still goes back, and people are like, oh, Dr. Mangan, Dr. Mangan. And so he is very fondly remembered there. And I go back. I'm actually going next week with my family. I love it's just like it's a great little place to go visit. There's a lot of freedom there for kids. And so I have maintained really close ties to that town and hope that when I retire that I don't want to move back there, but I'd like to spend a bit more time there. It's a really like an idyllic little place to grow up for any kid, I think.
Whoa. Oh yeah. So okay. So what's the name of that hometown town you
It
mentioned? And
it's called Kilkee. It's Kilkee. It's in County Clare. It's a bit south of the Cliffs of Moher. in Ireland. It's interesting because it's a place that a lot of tourists miss, which I think is kind of sad because they're missing like the best part of Ireland in my very biased opinion, but I'm also perfectly happy with that because it keeps it quiet for the people who do go there.
Mm. So Kilkee is a vacation town. How?
It's on the beach, and so Ireland is certainly not known for its heat in the summer. Like a hot day in Ireland would be about 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Um, but Irish people will swim in, I won't say any weather, but colder weather than certainly than Americans would be used to. So it's on built on a huge beach, like a big horseshoe-shaped beach, cliffs on both sides. There's a pier that the tide comes in and out twice a day, and it's a pretty significant tide. Like it's very different from a lot of American beaches where the tide barely moves. Um, you can swim, scuba dive, snorkel. There's actually a couple of really great shipwrecks. And I'm not a scuba diver, but I know lots of people who are, and so it's a great place for diving. Also a great place for like just being outside, like walking. There's a great cliff walk.
Mm.
There's, restaurants, cafes, a couple of hotels. I mean, it is a really small town, but it's really the beach that's the draw. Brings people from uh, my goodness, the word just fell out of my head.
That's okay.
People
That's
who
okay.
don't live by the sea who want to go to the coast for the summer. That's the town I come from. Kilkee is pretty popular for people to be able to come and literally either spend the whole summer or a week or 2 weeks or every weekend or whatever. And it's just to hang out on the beach.
Mm. So why the move from Kilkee to Chattanooga?
Yeah, so in a nutshell, it was to I mean, it was for my parents to provide a better life for their kids. I have four siblings. I'm the fourth of five, and my three older siblings all went to boarding school out of our little town. They went within Ireland, but they went to boarding school. Um, and it was getting, just more and more expensive, obviously, sending more and more kids off to paid boarding school. So my parents had lived in the US for a short time when they first got married. I have one brother who was actually born here. Uh, they went back to Ireland, and the economy in Ireland in the 1980s was just not great. And there was not a lot of promise for kids growing up in terms of careers. I actually talked to my brother a couple of weeks ago for this podcast, for my podcast. And one of the things he said, he was 15 when we left. He said you had to either your two options essentially in the part of Ireland, which is very rural where we lived, you either were going to become a farmer or learn to pull a really good pint of Guinness. So like farmer or bar work. And there obviously was a bit more than that, but it was fairly limited. And so we came to live the American dream. We all still live in the United States. We've been here 40 years. My parents live next door to me in Chattanooga, and my four siblings are, I've got one here in Chattanooga, one in Texas, and two in Colorado.
Oh, so living in various places in America, I believe.
Yeah, yes. We all came to Chattanooga, and people moved. I'm trying to think. My younger sister went to college in Texas and never came back. My sister in Colorado went out there for work when she finished medical school. She went to work in northern Colorado, and my oldest brother moved around a little bit and he settled in the mountains of Colorado, and I'm here. I lived in several other places and came back here about 20 years ago, and like I said, it's a good place to live and raise a family. And I have a brother who lives locally here in Chattanooga also.
Hmm. So if you came here for opportunities for Chattanooga, yeah, tell me what those opportunities are like for you in Chattanooga.
So to be honest, when I left here, so I moved when I was 10. So I went to what we called junior high back then and high school. And then I left for college. I stayed in Tennessee, but I went to Nashville.
Oh,
And I didn't think I would ever come back to Chattanooga, not for any like bad reason. I just didn't imagine I'd come back. And so I went to Nashville, and then I lived in Japan for a while after college.
what?
I taught English. And when I came back, I was in Tokyo, which, at the time was certainly one of the top three largest cities in the world, and really loved just being in a big, busy city. So when I came back from Japan, I moved to Chicago, lived there for several years, and really enjoyed the big city life for a lot of reasons. But after a while, realized I would never be able to buy a house in Chicago. It just was too expensive. And so almost 20 years ago, I made the decision to come back to Chattanooga. And I had been in a job in Chicago in the field of health analytics. So healthcare data. I worked in a hospital, and I'm very like type A. My brain is very math focused. And so I didn't bring my job back with me, but I came back to Chattanooga to do a similar type of job, where I was working with healthcare data for Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee. So stayed in the space of healthcare and just, found an equivalent job at a different company when I came back. When my dad first moved here, again, he's a doctor. And so he had been a doctor in Northeast Georgia, which is we're right on the border, Tennessee and Georgia. He had been a doctor in North Georgia back in the 70s. So when we came back in the 80s, he found a job here in Chattanooga as a physician. We just happened to work in healthcare. He's clinical and I'm not. But yeah, that's what I've done for years. Some local companies, and then I've worked remotely for quite some time.
I like that you've been everywhere, right?
Yeah, I have, like, my grandfather was a sailor. He died before I was born, but I kind of feel like I've got his wandering blood in my body. And also my parents are immigrants, and we all are. And it's I always want to go to new places. Like, I love seeing new places. Like, I feel like I've got that like built into my bones.
Hmm. Okay. So, so Mary, when it comes to podcasting, why do you do what you do?
That's a good question. I think I have spent a long time thinking about what it means for me to be an immigrant. It is a really central part of my own identity, being an immigrant, like being Irish. I am fiercely proud of my own background. It probably doesn't help that I did not want to move. I mean, I was 10 growing up in this little beach town. We moved to Southeast Tennessee. We lost quite a bit of our own independence. Like in my town, you'd walk out the door and you could go in my town in Ireland, you could go wherever you wanted, meet up with friends. And we moved here, it was a very different situation. We lived in kind of a suburb of Chattanooga. And so you couldn't walk to your friend's house because it was too far.
Oh,
So that was a big change. And so I've spent a long time thinking about that, whether it's conscious or subconsciously for all these years. And I do think it frames who I am in a lot of ways. I think I bring a different perspective to a lot of situations because I'm an immigrant. I generally think I'm a fairly empathetic person. Like, I want to hear other people's stories and understand where they came from, whether that's a different part of Tennessee or like the Philippines. Like, what's your story and how does your story frame how you see the world? Because I know how it's been for me. Um, so a couple of years ago, I was driving in my car and I was after the 2024 American presidential election. And I was thinking about what the results of that election meant for me and what it meant for my family and what it meant for the country and immigrants. And so I think because I really like talking to people and learning their stories, I just like I literally was driving and I started recording a voice note, like talking to myself in my car, and it formulated this idea for me that I wanted to start a podcast. And I really had no idea what that meant. But I got a little more serious about it, started doing some research, and finally started. So, March of this year was our 40-year anniversary in the US, and I'm really big on dates and numbers. So, I literally made March 26th my deadline because that's the anniversary of our move, and we mark it every single year. I made that my deadline to start the podcast. And so, I had done a couple of very casual recordings, and I decided to get more serious. I bought domain for my website and built out the website and started talking to people and doing interviews and, trying to think about what I wanted to talk to people about and so on. And I actually was pleasantly surprised by how easy it is to actually launch a podcast. Like that first, I got on Apple and Spotify, and then I think those maybe I'm on Squarespace, and like maybe they distribute my podcast to a couple of other places. And the first day because I listen to my podcasts on Apple and I have all these shows that I follow and I download episodes and I'm always sharing interesting episodes with people I know. And the first day when I saw my podcast on there, I just was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing. I have a podcast. Like I'm a podcaster." And so it's for me, I mean, it's a hobby. I'm not making money. I'm not really looking to make money. I'm looking to share stories and just talk to people. And so it's a hobby in that I have a full-time job and other things that I have to do. So the podcast certainly is not at the top of my priority list, but like, I'm trying to get episodes out on a regular basis. And it has been so interesting talking to people. Some I know and some like you, I just met through Reddit or Facebook or Instagram. It has already in 3.5 months talking to people, my perspective on my life as an immigrant has shifted noticeably because of conversations I've had with other people. I've always been a little like, oh, I'm not American, although I am an American citizen. I became an American citizen when I was 18. There's a stubborn side of me that's like, no, I'm Irish and I will be Irish till the day I die. But I am an Irish American at this point. I mean, I have been for a long time. But I have started to look at my experience as more of a positive than a nuisance. There are days where I despise being an American. I mean, that's the honest truth. And I could talk about that for a long time, but I think it's easy when you also grow up and you only get to the age of 10 in your home country because at that point I mean, my life was really good. And so I have really positive mental associations like with Ireland, and I don't necessarily have that with the US. So, but I really have shifted like these last couple of months. I'm like, no, it's actually a good thing. Because I think for a long time I was like, I don't really have a home. Like the people in Ireland view me as an American, and they have since like the day we left, as in my cousins and childhood friends. I mean, and here I'm viewed as an American by people who just met me because you can't tell by talking to me that I'm from anywhere but here. But people I've known for a long time and anyone I talk to, they know I'm Irish. And so for me, for a long time, I was like, well, home is not here and home is not there. I'm not really Irish. I'm not really American. But in talking to other people, it has let me realize that there's a great benefit in having two homes. It's okay to have two, and neither one is like fully home. And it's also okay to be American, and it's okay to be Irish, and it's okay to be Irish American. And I think for me, and maybe I think I'm a very analytical person. I think way too much, but that's really why I started the podcast. That was an incredibly long answer, but I think my own like experiences, self-reflection, talking to other people made me want to figure out a way to share the story because there's sacrifice involved with being an immigrant. And there are so many feelings towards immigrants. And I sometimes wish that those feelings were a bit more positive than they are. So I think I'm just trying to like pull those stories and put them out there so people can hear, like, oh, this person's just like me in every other way. She just happens to be from a different country. And that doesn't have to be a bad thing or a scary thing. It can be a good kind of exciting thing. So that's all of that together is why I started my podcast.
Hmm. That was a very long answer. That's wow. I mean, seriously. Yeah. Well, even if even if I mean, which you mentioned in the earlier podcast we recorded, you mentioned that you're a Toastmasters. Even if you're not a Toastmasters anymore, you pretty much still are a Toastmaster.
Well, and Irish people are known for their ability to talk, which is not
Really?
always a good thing. Um, we tell stories and we go down rabbit holes within stories, and it's really hard for me anyway. But that's a stereotype, but it comes from somewhere. It's really hard for me to go from A to B because I've got all these other little tangents. And so I think in that way I am very Irish. I love to talk. I love to learn about people. And clearly I like to talk about myself.
Ha, I see. Okay. So okay, one inspired to make when you're oh boy, I'm trying to form I'm trying to I've got a question list here, and I don't know if I could and I don't know if you could answer question three, what inspired to make the Immigrant Perspective, and four, what was the first thing you did before you posted the first episode? I think you covered those questions on number two, but even then, do you still want to answer it?
About like how the steps I had to take to start that first episode.
Yes, yeah. What inspired you, and then what was the first thing you did before you posted? Yeah.
So the inspiration is my own experience. And then I guess my first episode, I mean, I created a trailer, which was just like a 2 minute introduction. But my first episode was actually recorded in December of 2024. So it was right after I had this idea. And for Christmas that year, my wife got me this little set of microphones. And so one night we like sat in our living room and we were really testing the microphones. But I got into a conversation with her about her experience. She's an American, but her experience as a spouse of an immigrant and just what that's like. And so I did not ever really think that I would publish that episode. But she asked me a question at the end of it that I found so interesting. And my answer to her question really surprised me. So I was like, well, it was just so interesting to me that I answered it in the way that I did. And I knew I could never recreate this surprise and the shock in my own voice. And I actually surprised her with the answer. And so I published that. And it literally, like, I'm on a MacBook. So I started using like GarageBand. Like I said, I started my website. I didn't realize that like Squarespace, and I'm assuming tons of web hosts are like this, where you go in to add a page to your website and they have like a specific audio page where you upload your episode and then you put in all the information, just like the sheer logistics of it. Like, what's your title? What's the duration of this episode? The summary, the show notes, all the things. And so I feel like anyone can start a podcast if you've got a little bit of curiosity about what programs and stuff to use on your computer. So like I kind of took my son's gaming microphone that I'm using right now because he wasn't using it and used the tools available to me on my computer and did an audio recording and edited it to take out all my filler words and uploaded it to Squarespace. And like I said, then suddenly I was like, oh my God, I have a podcast. So yeah, does that answer that question about like the actual logistics?
I believe so. And also December 2024, a football game in December.
No, we were at home. So I didn't say anything about a football game.
I know I know you didn't say it, but I did listen to a couple of minutes of your
Oh, sorry.
first
Yes.
episode.
Yeah, yeah, we were watching football at home. Yeah, sorry. That episode.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Okay.
and we just literally were sitting on the couch one night post Christmas, like the house was kind of a mess and yeah, and we ended up I can't remember that one might have been about 30 minutes and we ended up we were chit-chatting about the immigrant perspective for the spouse of an immigrant and it took me a long time after that to do my second episode. But
Oh.
I finally, I mean, that one sat for over a year. And like I
Oh.
said, I didn't think I would use it because we were really like trying to make sure the microphones worked and they did. And then it was, I just thought that my genuine reaction to my wife's question about like, if you hadn't been born in Ireland, where would you want to be born? And I said the United States. And the surprise of that, like, I'm still surprised that that was my answer, which is kind of weird because I don't feel like I surprise myself very much. But yeah, we were sitting at home watching football.
Hmm.
I forgot about that.
That's okay. That's okay. And also, how are you good at conversations? Which, as you notice, I think I'm gonna need help with that.
How am I good at conversation?
Yeah.
I think I just genuinely love talking to people.
Oh.
Um, and I mean, I've definitely had, like, when I moved here from Ireland as a 10-year-old, it's such an awkward phase of life. And I had been in single sex schools. I mean, that's how the schools in Ireland were set up. We had the girls' school and the boys' school. And we moved here And suddenly overnight, I was in a co-ed school. And I mean, I was really, like, probably painfully quiet. I'm sure for a lot of reasons, my age, the fact that I was in school with boys for the first time. Um, I mean, I just was shy. And so there are a lot of times in my life where I've been pretty shy, but I think ultimately, like, I truly just I love connecting with people. And then, like, if I'm ever at an event and I've got a friend there and a friend there, and I know that they have a common interest, I will grab both of them and be like, hey, you guys need to meet each other because you both like, I don't know, soccer or Italian food or whatever. I don't know. I think it's really easy for humans these days, like, not to find those connections with each other. And like the advent of all the digital communication and stuff, like, I'm all for it in a lot of ways, but I do think we've lost a lot of ability to communicate. So I just really genuinely love talking to people and hearing their stories.
Mhm. I see. I see. And speaking of single-sex school, I believe, I'm pretty, the school I've been in before, for the past 5 years before moving to Canada, it's also a single-sex school. It's an all-boys school.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a tough adjustment. I think, I mean, I'm sure any age is hard to move countries, but then there's like layers of difficulty based on age and, like, you've never been in school with girls in your situation. Like, it just is, I don't know. It's tough. And I also think, like, that's one of the things that makes immigrants resilient. And again, I'm generalizing, but when you've had to adjust to so many things in your life, you get used to it in some ways. And I just think you become like a tougher person and able to deal with more things.
Nice. And how do you stay motivated to keep doing the immigrant perspective?
That's a good question. And I've only really been publishing for about 3.5, almost 4 months. So that would be a great question to ask me in about 6 months to see if I'm still doing it. I am good at ideas and thinking, oh, I want to take on this thing. And I love then kind of the thrill of getting things going. I'm not always as wonderful at following up. And I say that because I don't know in 6 months or 12 months what it's going to look like. I hope I'm still doing it. I think my motivation is because it's public. And so I've told people I'm doing it. And so my friends check in with me and, I listened to this episode and I really liked XYZ. So, like, if I know people are listening, I feel an obligation to keep going, but in a healthy way. And I think because I have a lot of people that I want to talk to. So
Oh,
that's a motivating factor. And I think just because I live by the calendar, so I've got and like lists, and so I've got all these people I want to talk to, and I want to make sure I get their stories out. And then I'm hoping that the more I do that, again, I mean, I'm not looking for like a million people to be listening to my podcast or even 10 or 15. It's just, again, that there might be some education in there for other people. And as people reach out to me, like I posted on Reddit for, who wants to share their immigrant story. And so I think the fact that there are people out there who will answer a stranger and say, yeah, I'd love to share my story, that's a motivation for me too, because I do think there are so many people who want to share their stories, whether it's an immigrant story or anything else. And so I think that's the motivation for me to keep going, is just to keep sharing stories.
mm. Yes, yes. Speaking of people, how do you find your guests?
How do I find my guests?
Yes.
And I feel like that is something that I'm learning as I go. So I guess I have a fairly robust immigrant community myself as an immigrant. So I know a lot of immigrants, and I mean, I have hit everybody up for an interview, and several people have said, no, I'm not comfortable sharing my story for some reason or another. Several other people have said, I don't really think I'd be a good speaker. I don't really feel like I have a story to share. So, and that's fine. I'm super respectful of all of that. And so I think I'm really trying to count on word of mouth. And I also like I had these little business cards printed. I don't know if so to pass out to people that like it's got a QR code to go to the website and get to the contact page and leave your information and doing things like outreach on social media, whether it's Reddit or Instagram. I have a really good friend up in Knoxville, and she and I went to college together. And she was born in the US, but her parents are both from India. So I thought she would have a good perspective to share. And, she was born here, but an Indian, um, she's not an Indian immigrant. Her parents were. And I thought her story would be really interesting. And she was one of those people who said, I don't feel comfortable going onto a podcast or being a guest. But she has spoken to probably dozens of people at this point. She works in a hospital. She's a pediatrician and she works with a ton of immigrants and people from all kind. Like I know a lot of Irish immigrants and Canadian immigrants, but she works with people from, it seems like all over the world. And so she's clearly telling a lot of them about the podcast because she'll text me or email me on a very regular basis to say, hey, this guy at work, maybe he's a translator and he's from, somewhere in Central America. He wants to talk to you. And I'm like, great, like let's make the connection. So she's been really good. So that's kind of what I'm hoping to build is like as more people like you, who I did not know before today, just, like presumably maybe your friends will listen in at some point and be like, oh, I'm also an immigrant from somewhere, or I know somebody. So that's what I'm going for.
Hmm, that's nice. What's your process of writing questions to your guests?
Oh, God, these are good questions. So before I started doing this, I listened to a lot of podcasts myself. And
Oh,
I love podcasts. And so one of the ones I listen to is the Family Trips with the Myers brothers. It's the comedian Seth Meyers and his brother Josh. And I think their guests are always celebrity guests just because of the world that they live in. And their focus is on family trips. They talk about family vacations and family dynamics, and they've got some really funny stories. And so at the end of every episode, they ask the same questions of all of their guests, and they're related to travel. And like, if you got stranded on a desert island with one member of your own family, who would you want it to be? And then they ask questions about the Grand Canyon. Like, they have specific questions they ask. And so I kind of thought in the beginning that I would do something like that where get the guest on camera, we start talking, and I get their story. And, just your background, what is it? I don't I don't quite I formulated questions that I wanted to ask, and one of them is how do you describe yourself in terms of your identity? What kinds of things surprised you in the place that you moved to? Try to ask about like traditions and foods and things from home. Like, did you bring those things with you? And then I always like to ask people where home is because I think that's really important and I think it says a lot. I don't necessarily get into every question with every guest. It just kind of depends on how the conversation goes. Some people are big talkers and some people aren't. And so I always have like, I don't know if you noticed when you and I were talking, like I was kind of like I have my monitor here. And so like I have a document with my questions. And so I'll just kind of glance at that once in a while because sometimes when I get really into a conversation, I will forget that I had this like great question I wanted to ask, and then the recording will be over, and somebody will say to me, oh, you should have asked him, this, that, or the other. And I'm like, I meant to. So I try to kind of keep the notes, but I don't want it to be a super rigid conversation. I want it to be a conversation. So I reference those questions, but I also let the conversation go where it's going. Just again, because everyone has a different experience. So, like, the same questions may not be relevant to every guest.
hmm, I see. What was the most memorable part of doing this podcast?
Oh, that's a good one. I my last episode that came out last week was with a comedian who is like she lives in New York. She's a professional comedian. as much as one can be a professional comedian. I follow her on Instagram, and I like she's a panelist on Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me, which is one of my favorite podcasts on NPR. And I had messaged her several months ago on Instagram. It's one of the things I like about the world of social media. There's a lot of negative there, but there's also some positive. So her parents are Iranian immigrants. She was born in the US, but is very connected to both the United States and Iran. And she's got really strong and interesting political views. And she's in my opinion, like she's pretty famous. She's well known in NPR comedian type of circles. I don't really know how to describe that. So anyway, I had messaged her a couple months ago and like to say, "Hey, would you be on my podcast?" Fully thinking that was ridiculous, and she didn't answer. But then I heard that she was bringing a comedy show to Chattanooga, and we're not a huge city, like we're not Atlanta, we're not Nashville. And so when I heard that she was doing that, I messaged her again and I was like, "Hey, I live in Chattanooga and I know this is a real long shot, but while you're here," I had no idea like when she'd come in, like a day or two before her show. But I said, "If you would be willing to do an interview, this is my podcast. I would love to talk to you." And she actually answered me, and then she sent me her email address. And then the day before she came in, she's like, "Text me, I'm getting in at this time tomorrow." And I went and met her, and she actually ended up coming to my house, and we did about a 90-minute interview. And it was really cool because I was like, I had absolutely nothing to lose in that situation. If she had never answered me, like that would have been fine. But she just was super down to earth. She had great perspectives and opinions on immigrant life, growing up in an immigrant family. And she just was like a really fun person. Like she got to meet my family while she was here, and then we went to my wife and my best friend and I went to her comedy show, and it was a small enough venue that like afterwards, there were several comedians there, and they all hung out. We just got to chit chat with her and like just have like a normal conversation. It was really fun. So that was very memorable for me. I felt like she was very gracious in that she gave me so much of her time. And it was just, it was fun to meet her. And I'm like, I'm joking with my wife. I'm like, yeah, Nagin Farsad and I are friends now, and I'm probably going to hit her up when I go to New York, which I'm not. If she ever listens to this, I don't want her to think I'm stalking her because I'm not. But just, like a funny, memorable guest.
Okay. All right. That's first of all, that's very awesome that you get to network with someone you listen to on NPR.
Yeah, it was oh, it was really fun. Like I was like, she's never going to answer my message. I mean, I really did not expect that she would. So I was happy that she did. And I was even happier that I, got to actually meet her and do an interview. And again, she's got great perspective. And she's also really smart. And I have a lot of respect for that. So yeah, it was really fun to meet her and talk to her.
Okay. All right. That's nice. Mary Lou, what's been your biggest roadblock doing this podcast so far, and how did you handle it?
I think I have two. One has been some challenge with actually getting guests. Like
Oh,
thinking I would have lots of people lined up and then realizing, this person's not ready. This person can't share their story for some other reason. So that's been a little challenging. The second one is just the time. Um, and I think even in the few months I have been working that I've gotten better in terms of how much time it takes me to edit an episode. Everything that goes onto my podcast is done by me. And so I'm doing the editing takes a long time, but I have seen like I've developed, efficiency since I started. But I mean, it takes hours and hours to edit 30, 45 minutes or to get to that length of a podcast. And sometimes I like just don't have the energy or I don't have the time. So I would say like actually finding people to come on to the show and then just the editing process is pretty time consuming. But I love it, so that's why I keep doing it.
nice. All right. So, how do you balance podcasting and work?
And work.
Yes.
I think it's really just knowing that my paid job has to take priority. And sometimes I feel a little guilty because I'm sitting here at my computer editing where maybe my family's watching TV and I feel like I should be doing something with them. But again, I think I've used so I use the Riverside platform to do recordings, and I don't do video on mine. I just do audio, and I feel like video would just add hours and hours to every episode for me. But I have learned to use, I mean, just some of their AI tools. Like they'll take the recording, and it's generally two speakers that are on my show. It's me and the guest, and they'll use they like Riverside. The platform uses AI to make the beat at least like the rudimentary edits, like removing pauses, taking out the filler words, and then they have a feature where they can tell that the guest and I were having like a side conversation, and they'll highlight that so you can go ahead and delete it if it is. And I do that quite a bit where I'll say this is not for the podcast, but so I've learned to use tools like that to try to make the edit process a little more efficient for myself so I'm not, spending like 12 hours editing one episode.
Mm, I see. Oh, that's yeah, tedious, but I'm good. Tedious, but I'm glad you're enjoying it so far.
Yeah, yeah.
And this was from the other recording we did on your podcast. You mentioned that you're a Toastmasters. Before I get to more questions, can you tell me more about your experiences at Toastmasters?
Yeah, I feel like I had known about the organization for quite some time, and probably like a lot of things that come across my knowledge, it sounded interesting, but I didn't really seek it out in terms of
Oh,
trying to do much. But I started work at a company here in Chattanooga. This was probably 10 or 12 years ago, or maybe a bit more. And the company we had actually had two Toastmasters chapters. It was a pretty big company. And so I think they paid our annual dues as part of our employee benefit package, totally voluntary. And so I joined one of the Toastmasters groups, and we would meet, at lunchtime once a week or once every 2 weeks. And I mean, it doesn't get much easier than that, where your employer is sponsoring you to be in this activity. You get to, go during lunch, meet at work, and just get into what Toastmasters is. And so they had all the leadership roles, and it was all fellow employees at the company. And so I really enjoyed it. It was a great activity. I probably did it for a year or two, learned a lot. I found it at the time to be a really supportive and helpful environment. And like I said to you, like I hadn't thought about Toastmasters in a long time, but I kind of feel like I need to go back and find a local chapter and maybe start going to meetings again, because it's really helpful because the feedback is done in a very collegiate kind of a way. It's very friendly. You're not being picked on, but people are specific in their feedback about how you speak and things you do well and things you need to improve on. I just think it's a great way to learn. And I mean, for almost everybody, at some point you're going to have to speak publicly. So I think those are great skills to have.
and okay, what is your number one piece of advice for someone looking to start a purpose-driven podcast like yours?
Like just get into it. Um, I I think for myself, I spent a lot of time thinking and planning and thinking about things like, well, what if I start and this goes wrong? Or what if this doesn't work? But I think you just have to put a lot of that aside and just decide to go do it. It was much easier than I realized to get started. And I mean that from like the logistics perspective. I'm like, again, I've mentioned Squarespace a couple of times. I have a couple of websites I host there. And so I'm comfortable in Squarespace, but they make the process of publishing a podcast very easy. So I don't know. I feel like and I joked earlier, like everybody has a podcast, which is, good and maybe not so good because it's easy to get lost in the crowd. I just think like just get in and do it. And like if you're gonna just talk yourself, fine. Go find guests, that's fine. Um, and I also think like any topic that you can find, you're gonna find potential audience or listeners that are interested in your topic. It's a matter of like trying it and having a bit of a plan and then sticking with it.
Hmm, nice. And what does the podcast you're doing right now mean to you?
Oh gosh. Oh, that's I don't know how to put that into a simple answer. I think maybe it honors my own immigrant journey slash immigrant experience. Um, yeah, I think in a kind of a self-centered way, it it also helps me maybe reframe or think about things differently in terms of my own experience in a really good way. That you can take an experience and you can have a positive outlook on it or a negative one, and those can both be okay. I do think there are parts of my own immigrant experience that I feel like I'm not upset about them, but like I don't I don't love that I moved when I was 10. Like I never loved that, but it's okay. It has brought me to where I am now. And I mean, this is going to sound cheesy, but like, frankly, I can't imagine being in any other place in my life. So I think it has helped me just process my own journey, which feels a little selfish, but it's been super fun in the process.
Okay, nice. And that's it for the questions. Are you ready for quick fire? Answer questions quickly in under 90 seconds.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes, I hope
Oh,
so.
right, you can do this. Here we go. One word to describe yourself.
Loyal.
Hmm. What is your best podcasting tip?
My best podcast, what?
Podcasting tip.
Oh, tip. I think it's just do it. If you want to do it, just do it.
Oh, okay. Best artist you love to listen to.
Oh, this is going to be cliche. Also, I like the Indigo Girls.
Oh, one everyday item you can't live without.
My phone.
Ah, mantra in life.
I think also part of it is just do it. I feel like an advertisement for Nike, but yeah, I like take the opportunity to have the experience
Best place in Tennessee for a good meal.
for a good meal.
Yes.
My favorite restaurant down the street that I'm going to this afternoon is called Tremont Tavern. It's the best burger in Chattanooga.
Ah, best place in Tennessee to go road tripping or travel.
I would say the Smoky Mountains, but in the off season.
Hmm. One song that uplifts
Oh my gosh. Uh, the Brandy Carlisle and the Highwomen, I think it's their song, the Crowded Table.
you. Ah, okay. Knowing that you don't mind, yeah, I mean, I don't know, oh, but will you be okay to doing a Zoom screenshot considering this is going to be a video podcast?
Sure.
All right, here we go. Okay, Mary Lou, thank you though. Thank you for the opportunity to be in your podcast, and thank you for the opportunity to be in mine.
Yes, thank you, Nigel. I really have enjoyed meeting you.
And any last thoughts or comments?
Thank you, truly, just for reaching out. Like it just you and I come from different like directions, different corners of the earth. We live in different countries now, but it just I this is like I just there's connection like between so many people, and I know that's cheesy. Um, I just really appreciate that you reached out and that you shared your story with me and then asked me questions. You know, there's no other world in which we would have met except for the fact that we both are on that Reddit
Yeah.
subreddit, and so this has been great. Like I've truly enjoyed talking to you, and so I appreciate your time and your generosity, just with your questions and your life story.
Thanks. And thanks. And anywhere we can reach you again?
I am at reallyfrompod.com. And my email address is immigrantpod@gmail.com.
Okay. And again, Marilu, thank you for coming to the Meetup.
And thank you, Nigel, for coming on to the Immigrant Perspective. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right. Have a good afternoon.
You too, ma'am.
All
Stay
right.
safe.
All right. You too.
Stay
Thanks.
safe. Thanks.